The starship Silver Dawn moved through space like a silent arrow. Inside, passengers filled the seats. Traders talking about profits, families whispering to restless children, soldiers coming back from far-off wars. The air smelled of metal, recycled air, and travel food. But near the back, in the last row by the window, sat someone who didn't belong. She was small and thin, with long silver hair falling like water over her shoulders. Her skin glowed faintly violet under the ship's lights, and her eyes shone like two moons. Anyone could see she was not human. She was from another world, maybe a world people only knew from old war stories. But that wasn't why everyone avoided her. It was the scent. Not dirty, not rotten, just different. Wild. Sharp. Like rain on dry dust mixed with strange flowers that bloomed only on alien soil. It wasn't a smell humans knew, and because they didn't understand it, they didn't like it. A man carrying luggage walked near her row, then stopped, nose wrinkling. He turned around quickly and chose another seat far away. Two women whispered as they passed. That smell again, awful. Why can't they put her in a separate cabin? The alien girl heard them. She always heard them. Her ears, long and delicate, moved slightly at every sound. But she didn't lift her head. She kept her gaze on the floor, hands locked tightly together in her lap. This wasn't new. It happened on every ship, every station. Wherever she went, people turned their backs. Children pointed. Adults muttered. Some stared like she was dangerous. She had learned to stay silent, to make herself small, to wait for the journey to end so she could get off and disappear again. The ship's door slid open with a hiss. A man walked in. His steps were heavy, slow, like someone carrying too many memories. He wore a dark coat with burn marks on the edges, boots scuffed from long marches. His hair was messy, his face lined with tiredness. A soldier, maybe retired, maybe just running from his past. People noticed him. Soldiers always stood out. He scanned the rows for an empty seat. That was when the scent reached him. He froze. For a second, the Silver Dawn wasn't there anymore. He wasn't here. His mind flew back years into the past. Back to nights on a battlefield under a red sky. Back to when he was young, bleeding, lying in alien dirt, thinking he wouldn't see another sunrise. Back to when someone had carried him to safety, wrapped his wounds in leaves, fed him bitter herbs that kept him alive. The same scent had been there. Smoke, rain, those strange flowers. To everyone else, it was unpleasant. To him, it was memory. It was life. People whispered as he started walking again. Don't sit there, a trader muttered. That's the alien girl, someone warned. But he ignored them. He saw her sitting alone, small and silent, silver hair hiding her face. Her shoulders stiff like someone waiting for the next insult. The soldier walked down the aisle slowly. The girl lifted her head slightly, unsure why he was coming closer. Passengers stared. Some leaned forward, curious. And then, to everyone's shock, he sat down beside her. The air went still. People exchanged looks. Is he mad? Someone whispered. How can he stand that smell? Another said. But the soldier didn't care. He leaned back calmly, as if sitting next to her was the most normal thing in the world. Hello, he said softly. His voice was rough but warm, like someone who had seen too much but still carried kindness somewhere deep inside. The alien girl blinked. She looked at him carefully, waiting for the joke, the insult, the trick. But none came. Hello, she whispered back, voice trembling. I'm Jack, he said simply. She hesitated. Lyra, she finally murmured, giving her name like it was something fragile she wasn't sure he deserved yet. For the first time in so long, someone sat near her. Someone talked to her. Someone didn't look at her like she was a curse. She didn't understand why. She didn't know the scent everyone hated had pulled this man toward her because it reminded him of a debt he never repaid. A life saved long ago by hands like hers. And she didn't know danger was coming. That this meeting was only the beginning. That before the journey ended, this quiet ship would become a battlefield. And her life would change forever. The hum of the Silver Dawn filled the silence between them. Lyra sat with her head slightly turned, stealing quick glances at the man who had chosen to sit beside her. No one ever did that. People always kept their distance, always avoided her, always looked at her like she carried some hidden disease. But this man, Jack, he sat like the whispers, the stares, the smell. None of it mattered to him. Confused her. She finally asked, her voice soft and unsure, Why did you sit here? Jack's eyes stayed on the window, watching the stars drift past like falling snow. Because I wanted to, he said simply. That wasn't an answer. He could feel her watching him, waiting for more. But he didn't speak yet. He was listening, to the faint hum of the engines, to the murmurs of passengers still staring at them, to the ghosts in his own mind. Because the scent was still there. That wild, sharp smell that made others wrinkle their noses. It wrapped around him like a memory refusing to fade. Finally, he said quietly, A long time ago, I smelled this before. Lyra turned toward him, eyes wide. You have. Jack nodded slowly. War. Planet called Reiner. I was young. Stupid. Thought I was invincible. Then came the ambush. He paused, remembering. We were outnumbered. Outgunned. My unit didn't make it. I was left bleeding in the mud. He rubbed the scar on his neck without thinking. They would have left me there to die. But someone found me. An alien soldier. He dragged me to safety. Used strange leaves. Herbs. Smelled just like this. Lyra's hands trembled slightly in her lap. She knew what he was talking about. Your people? Jack asked softly. She nodded once. The salve of my tribe. Made from the roots of the Thalrin flower. Stops bleeding. Fights infection. Smells strong. Jack almost smiled. Saved my life. Lyra stared at him like she didn't understand. You're alive, she said softly. Because of your people, Jack answered. But before she could speak again, movement in the aisle caught his eye. Two men. Rough clothes. Hard faces. They weren't normal passengers. They kept glancing toward Lyra. Jack's soldier instincts woke up like a blade pulled from its sheath. He leaned slightly forward, watching them in the window's reflection. They sat 3 rows ahead but kept looking back. He didn't like it. Lyra noticed his expression change. Quietly, she said, They're following me. Jack turned to her sharply. You know them. She nodded, fear flashing in her eyes. Who? Raiders, she whispered. From the outer rim. My village. They destroyed it. Took everything. I escaped. They want me back. Jack's jaw tightened. He didn't like the sound of that. The 2 men ahead whispered to each other. One got up, pretending to stretch, his eyes scanning the ship. Jack watched every move. He leaned closer to Lyra and said softly, Why you? What do they want? She hesitated. Her hands twisted together nervously. Finally, she whispered, Because of what I carry. Jack frowned. What do you carry? Lyra didn't answer. She looked down at the small pouch tied to her belt. Before Jack could ask again, the 2 raiders stood up and started walking toward the back. Toward them, passengers looked nervous. Some whispered. Jack stayed calm, eyes on the men. They stopped 2 seats away. One leaned casually on a chair and said, voice low but sharp, Girl, you're coming with us. Lyra froze. Jack slowly stood up. She's not going anywhere. The man sneered. Not your problem, soldier. Sit down. Jack's hand twitched near his belt where a weapon used to be. He didn't have one now, but he didn't need one. Not yet. She's under my protection, Jack said, voice like steel. The raider smirked. You? One man. Jack's eyes locked on his. Try me. The tension cracked through the cabin like lightning. Passengers shrank back in their seats. The second raider's hand moved under his jacket. Weapon? Maybe. Jack shifted his weight, ready to strike first if he had to. But before anyone moved, the ship's guard appeared at the front, called by nervous passengers. What's going on back there? The raiders glared at Jack but stepped back slowly. This isn't over, one hissed. They returned to their seats. For now, Lyra's hands shook. Jack sat back down, eyes still on the men ahead. "Why are they after you?" he asked again. This time, she whispered the words like a secret wrapped in fear. "Because my father was the last chieftain of Reiner, and I carry his blood." The audience now knows this is more than a simple journey. The girl isn't just a passenger. She's the heir of a fallen people. And danger isn't done with her yet. The rest of the passengers on the Silver Dawn tried to relax again, but the air inside the cabin felt heavy now. Too heavy. People talked in low voices, eyes darting toward the two raiders sitting near the front. They had returned to their seats when the guards appeared, but they didn't look nervous. They looked like men waiting for the right moment. Jack didn't like it. He had seen men like this before. In war. In border towns. In places where law meant nothing. Raiders were like wolves. If they failed once, they didn't run. They watched. They waited. They came back harder. Lyra sat beside him, quiet, her silver hair falling forward to hide her face. But Jack noticed her hands. She was holding that small leather pouch on her belt, fingers tight like she thought someone might rip it away. Earlier she had said she carried her father's blood. At first, Jack thought it was just a way of saying she was his daughter, the last of his tribe. But the way she touched that pouch, it was something more. Something inside it mattered. He leaned toward her, voice low. "What's in the pouch?" She shook her head quickly. "Not here," she whispered. "Too many ears." Jack didn't push. Not yet. At the front, one of the raiders stood and walked toward the washroom. But his eyes weren't on the door. They were on Lyra. Jack noticed. He turned slightly in his seat, pretending to look at the window but watching the man in the reflection. The raider wasn't going to the washroom. He stopped near the crew door, said something to another passenger, then slowly walked back toward his seat. But his eyes scanned the cabin like he was measuring distance, exits, timing. Jack had seen this before. This was planning. The Silver Dawn hummed softly as it moved through the stars. Outside, the endless blackness of space stretched forever. Inside, the tension grew tighter with each passing minute. Jack spoke softly to Lyra. "How many are after you?" She hesitated. "More than these two," she whispered. "They have a ship. They will follow when we land." Jack frowned. "Why not take you now?" "Because of the guards," Lyra said. "Here they wait. Out there. No one will stop them." Jack didn't like the sound of that. He leaned back in his seat, mind racing. He was unarmed, outnumbered, no friends on this ship. But he wasn't new to danger. Years of war had taught him how to fight with nothing but fists, wit, and timing. Still, this wasn't about him. It was about the girl. Why did raiders want her so badly? And why risk so much to get her? Finally, Lyra spoke again, voice trembling. "My father, before he died. He gave me this." Her hand touched the pouch again. Jack looked at it. "What is it?" She hesitated, eyes flicking toward the raiders, then back to Jack. "A seal," she whispered. "The mark of the Reiner chieftain. Whoever holds it can call the clans together, can make them rise again." Jack understood now. The Reiner tribes had been scattered after the war. Leaderless, broken, easy prey for raiders, slavers, and worse. But with one leader, one call, they could become an army again. That's why they wanted her. If she lived, the tribes could unite. If she died, the dream died too. At the front, the raiders whispered to each other again. One of them looked back with a slow smile that didn't reach his eyes. Jack didn't like smiles like that. He had seen them in ambushes before. Trouble was coming. The lights flickered suddenly as the ship moved through a patch of ion storm. Passengers murmured nervously. A child cried softly somewhere in the back. The raiders stood. This time they didn't wait. They walked down the aisle, slow and confident, hands near their belts. The guards were at the front, too far to stop them in time. Jack stood, placing himself between the men and Lyra. "Move," one of the raiders said coldly. Jack didn't move. "She's not going anywhere," he said. His voice was calm, but his stance spoke louder. The taller raider's hand rested on the grip of a small blaster half hidden under his coat. "Last chance, soldier. Walk away." Jack shook his head once. No. The passengers held their breath. Even the engines seemed quieter now. The shorter raider grinned and took a step closer. Then you die with her. Jack's eyes narrowed. His muscles tensed like steel cables. He counted the steps, the reach, the timing. He had no gun. But he didn't need one for what would come next. The storm outside made the lights flicker again. Shadows jumped across the walls. And then, chaos exploded. The taller raider went for his blaster. The shorter one lunged forward. Jack moved first. Years of war had burned one rule into his bones. Strike fast, strike hard. Don't stop until it's over. By the time the guards came running, 3 passengers were screaming. The raiders were on the floor, and Jack stood like a wall in front of Lyra, his fists bloody but his eyes calm. But this was only the beginning, because the raiders had friends waiting outside, and they wouldn't forgive this. The raiders lay on the floor, groaning. One had a broken nose. The other clutched his ribs, gasping for air. Jack stood over them like a storm waiting to break again. But his eyes weren't calm anymore. He knew what was coming next. Raiders never worked alone. The guards rushed down the aisle, shouting, "What happened here?" Passengers all spoke at once. They attacked the girl. The soldiers stopped them. They had weapons. The guards searched the men and found small blasters hidden under their coats. That ended the argument. The captain ordered the raiders locked in the storage cabin until landing. But Jack knew better. Locking them up wouldn't end this. Lyra sat trembling in her seat. Her hands clutched the small pouch on her belt, the one carrying the seal of her father's tribe. "Are you hurt?" Jack asked softly. She shook her head. "No, but they won't stop. They never stop." Jack sat beside her, scanning the cabin. The passengers were still whispering, staring at the girl like she was cursed. But he understood now. She wasn't cursed. She was hunted. And whoever wanted her would not stop until they had her, or until they killed her. The silver dawn kept moving through space, engines humming, lights flickering softly as it neared its destination. The planet below grew larger in the windows, blue oceans, green land, scattered cities. Soon they would land. And that's when the real danger would come. Jack leaned closer to Lyra. "Listen to me," he said. "When we land, stay close. Don't talk to anyone. Don't stop moving." Her eyes were wide, scared, but she nodded. She didn't trust many people, but she was beginning to trust him. At the front, the guards kept the raiders locked inside the storage cabin. But Jack noticed something the others didn't. The men weren't afraid. They looked calm, like men who knew help was coming. Jack didn't like it. As the ship prepared for landing, the captain's voice came over the speakers. "Attention passengers. We will be arriving at Port Carith in 20 minutes. Please remain seated as we begin descent." Port Carith. Jack knew the name. A busy spaceport on the edge of the law. Too many ships. Too many shadows. Perfect place for raiders to disappear after grabbing their target. And Lyra, she was the target. The ship shuddered slightly as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Clouds covered the windows. Engines roared louder. And then, the power went out. Lights flickered once. Twice. Then the whole cabin went dark except for the red emergency strips along the floor. Passengers gasped. Someone screamed. The captain's voice shouted over the speakers. "We've lost main power. Everyone stay calm." But outside the window, Jack saw it. A small raider ship flying close, weapons glowing. They had cut the Silver Dawn's engines. The real attack had begun. The storage cabin doors burst open. The raiders inside weren't prisoners anymore. Someone had helped them. They came out armed, blasters ready, faces twisted with anger. Passengers ducked under seats, screaming. The guards drew weapons but were outnumbered. Jack pushed Lyra behind him, eyes scanning the chaos. "Give us the girl," the leader shouted, aiming his blaster. "Over my dead body," Jack growled. "That can be arranged," the raider sneered. The ship shook as the raider vessel outside fired warning shots. The Silver Dawn dropped lower, alarms blaring. Jack grabbed a fallen guard's stun stick and faced the men coming toward them. One moved fast, blaster up. Jack swung the stick hard. Sparks flew as it cracked against the man's arm. The blaster clattered to the floor. Another raider rushed in. Jack kicked him back, grabbed the weapon and fired a stun shot. The man dropped instantly, but there were too many. More raiders climbed aboard from the docking tube that connected their ship to the Silver Dawn. Dozens now. Passengers screamed, running to the back. Lyra froze, clutching her pouch, eyes wide with terror. Jack grabbed her arm. "Move!" he shouted, pulling her toward the rear exit. The ship was dropping fast. Smoke filled the cabin. Sparks fell from the ceiling. A raider blocked their path. Jack slammed him against the wall. Another came swinging a knife. Jack ducked, hit him with the stun stick and kept moving. But the leader was waiting near the exit, weapon raised. "Give her to me," he said coldly. Jack stepped in front of Lyra. "Not happening," he said. The leader smiled darkly. "Then you die first." The blaster fired. But Jack was faster. He threw himself sideways, grabbing Lyra as the shot burned past. The stun stick cracked against the leader's wrist. The blaster dropped. Jack punched him hard, once, twice, until the man fell. The ship roared as it came in for a crash landing. Outside, the raider vessel waited like a shark circling wounded prey. This wasn't over. Not even close. The Silver Dawn hit the ground hard. Metal screamed. Sparks flew. Passengers cried out as the ship skidded across the landing field before stopping with a final shudder. Smoke filled the cabin, red lights flashing as alarms howled. But Jack didn't hear the noise. He was already moving. "Lyra, stay close," he shouted, pulling her to her feet. She clutched the pouch on her belt, eyes wide, terrified. Around them, passengers scrambled to escape through the emergency doors. Guards tried to push people towards safety, but the raiders were already cutting through the side of the ship with burning tools, their leader shouting orders over the noise. They were coming. Jack scanned the cabin quickly. He saw a fallen guard's blaster near the aisle. He grabbed it, checked the charge. Only 3 shots left. Not enough. But he had no choice. "Move," he told Lyra, guiding her toward the rear hatch. But the raiders came fast, climbing through the side breach. Weapons raised. Faces full of rage. They wanted the girl. The first one fired. Jack shoved Lyra down, returned a shot. The man fell. Another raider rushed in with a blade. Jack met him head-on, slammed the blaster across his jaw, grabbed the knife as it fell, and threw it at the next attacker. The blade hit the man's arm. He screamed, dropped his weapon. But there were too many guns, too many killers. The leader stepped into the smoke-filled cabin, tall and cold-eyed. "End this," he barked. "Get the girl." Lyra backed up, clutching her pouch tighter. Jack moved in front of her, blaster ready. "You're not taking her," he growled. The leader smiled faintly. "You don't even know what she carries, soldier. Give her to us and maybe we let you live." Jack's jaw tightened. "Not happening." The leader raised his weapon. But before he could fire, the ship's loudspeakers crackled. "Stand down," a new voice shouted. It was the Silver Dawn's captain. The remaining guards had gathered at the front, weapons aimed at the raiders. The leader hesitated, eyes narrowing. He wasn't afraid of the guards, but he wanted the girl alive. "Fall back," he ordered his men finally. The raiders retreated toward their own ship, but the leader's eyes locked on Lyra as he left. "This isn't over," he said softly. "We will take what is ours." And then they were gone. The cabin was a mess. Smoke, broken seats, injured passengers. But for the moment, the danger had passed. Jack lowered his blaster slowly. Lyra was shaking, eyes wet, hands gripping her pouch like it held her life inside. Jack knelt beside her. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. But Jack knew the fear in her eyes wasn't from the crash or the fight. It was from what was coming next. They left the ruined ship through the emergency hatch. Outside, the landing field was chaos. Guards shouting, medics rushing to help the wounded, port officials trying to restore order. But beyond the noise, Jack saw it. The raider vessel lifting off slowly. They weren't retreating. They were circling. Waiting. Jack guided Lyra toward a quieter corner of the field. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll be back." Lyra looked at him with wide, uncertain eyes. "Why?" he asked softly. "Why risk so much for you? For that seal you carry?" She hesitated, then slowly untied the pouch. Inside was a small metal disc, glowing faintly with blue symbols. "This," she whispered, "is the mark of the chieftain. My father was the last leader of the Reiner tribes. Before he died, he gave this to me." Jack studied it, frowning. "What does it do?" "It calls the clans," Lyra said. "All of them. If I show this, the tribes will gather. They will follow the one who carries it." "And the raiders? They want it destroyed," she whispered. "If the tribes stay broken, no one will stop them from taking our lands, our people, everything." Jack closed his hand around the metal disc, feeling its strange warmth. "So you're not just some girl," he said slowly. She shook her head. "I am the last heir of Reiner." A shadow fell over them. Jack spun, weapon ready, but it was only a port officer. "Soldier," the man said quickly. "We've called for city guards. They'll escort the passengers to safety." Jack glanced at the sky where the raider ship circled. "Not enough," he muttered. The officer frowned. "What?" "They won't stop," Jack said. "They'll come again. Out there. Away from the port. Somewhere they can kill without witnesses." He turned to Lyra. "We need to move. Now." She looked scared but nodded. The raiders had come this far. They wouldn't stop until they had her, or until Jack stopped them first. And he planned to stop them. But deep down, Jack knew this was bigger than one girl, one ship, one fight. Because if what she said was true, then this wasn't just a battle for survival. It was the beginning of a war. The sky above Port Carith turned dark as the sun slipped behind storm clouds. Winds blew dust across the landing field, carrying the smell of smoke from the wrecked Silver Dawn. Lyra stood beside Jack, clutching the pouch with the mark of the chieftain. Her violet eyes stayed on the black raider ship circling high above like a hawk waiting for its prey. "They're coming back," Jack said quietly. She nodded, her face pale. "They won't stop." He could see the fear in her eyes. She wasn't wrong. Raiders never stopped until they got what they wanted. But Jack wasn't planning to let them win. Port guards gathered near the edge of the landing field, nervous hands gripping their rifles. They had seen raids before, but never this bold. One officer turned to Jack. "We've called for reinforcements," he said, "but they may take time." Jack scanned the field, too open, no good cover. If the raiders landed here, it would be a slaughter. "They'll come before help arrives," Jack said grimly. "We need to move." "Move where?" the officer asked. Jack's eyes fell on the old supply hangars near the edge of the port. Strong walls, few exits. A place where they could fight back instead of being open targets. "There," Jack said, pointing. "We take the girl inside. Hold until backup comes." The officer hesitated but then nodded. Jack guided Lyra quickly toward the hangar. Her small steps struggled to keep up with his long strides. "Stay close," he told her. She looked up at him, voice soft. "Why are you helping me?" Jack didn't answer right away. He thought of the war years ago, of the Reiner soldier who had saved his life when he was bleeding in the mud. "Because once," Jack said finally, "your people saved me. Now it's my turn." Inside the hangar, the air was cool and smelled of dust and old metal. Crates and broken machinery lay scattered in the corners. Jack placed Lyra behind a stack of cargo boxes. "Stay low. No matter what happens, don't run unless I tell you." She nodded silently, clutching the pouch tighter. Outside, the sound came slowly at first, a low hum like distant thunder. Then louder. Engines. Dozens of them. The raiders were coming. Jack moved to the doorway, checking his stolen blaster. Only 2 shots left. Not nearly enough. He grabbed a length of metal pipe from the floor. Heavy, solid. It would have to do. His soldier instincts counted the seconds between the engine sounds. They were landing on all sides, trying to trap them inside the hangar. Jack smiled faintly. Good. Let them come. The first raider burst through the doorway, weapon raised. Jack moved like lightning. The metal pipe smashed into the man's arm before he could fire. The weapon fell, clattering across the floor. Jack kicked him hard, sending him sprawling back into the dust. Another came through behind him. Jack fired one of his last blaster shots. Blue energy slammed into the man's chest, dropping him instantly. But more kept coming. The hangar filled with shouts, gunfire, footsteps pounding against the floor. Jack fought like a man with nothing left to lose. The metal pipe cracked against skulls and arms. Raiders fell, some unconscious, some groaning in pain. But Jack was only one man, and there were too many enemies. Near the back, Lyra crouched behind the crates, trembling but silent. She wanted to help, to do something, but all she could do was clutch the mark of the chieftain and pray Jack stayed standing. A raider spotted her and broke away from the fight, moving toward her hiding place. "Jack!" she cried. Jack turned just in time. He threw the metal pipe across the room. It spun through the air and hit the raider in the side of the head. The man dropped before reaching her. "Stay down!" Jack shouted. The leader entered then, tall and cold-eyed, weapon glowing in his hand. "Enough games," he growled. Jack grabbed another fallen blaster. One shot left. The two men faced each other across the hangar. One for greed, one for duty. The leader smirked. "You can't save her. Give me the girl and I'll let you live." Jack raised the blaster slowly. "Come and take her." The leader moved first, firing fast. Jack rolled behind a stack of crates, returning his last shot. The leader ducked, the blast burning across the wall behind him. Now Jack had no ammo left. The leader smiled, stepping closer. "You're finished, soldier." But Jack wasn't done yet. He grabbed a broken metal rod from the floor, waiting as the leader came closer. Then Jack leapt forward, swinging hard. The rod hit the leader's arm, the blaster fell. Jack slammed his shoulder into the man, both crashing to the floor. They fought hand to hand, punches landing like hammers, neither giving an inch. Outside, sirens wailed. Reinforcements were finally arriving. The leader heard them and snarled in rage. He pushed Jack back with a hard kick, retreating toward the doorway. "This isn't over," he shouted before escaping into the shadows with his remaining men. Jack stood in the wrecked hangar, chest heaving, hands bleeding, eyes still locked on the door where the raiders had fled. Lyra ran to him, clutching the mark of the chieftain. "They'll come back," she whispered. Jack nodded grimly. "Then we'll be ready, because this fight was far from finished." The night over Port Carith burned with lights from patrol ships and security drones. Sirens screamed as city guards spread across the landing field, searching for raider survivors. Inside the broken hangar, Jack stood with his back to the doorway, shoulders tense, eyes scanning the shadows. He knew it wasn't over. Raiders always came back. Lyra sat on a crate nearby, still clutching the mark of the chieftain. Her silver hair was messy from the fight, her violet eyes wide with exhaustion. She looked at Jack and whispered softly, "You should leave me." Jack turned, frowning. "What? They want me, not you," she said. "If I go with them, maybe they stop hunting." Jack shook his head sharply. "That's not how raiders work. You give them what they want, they take more. Always more." She looked down, voice breaking. "Then what do I do? I have nowhere to go." Jack's face softened. He wasn't good with words, but he knew one thing. This girl had already lost too much. "We find a safe place," he said. "Somewhere they can't reach you." The sound of engines cut through the night. Everyone looked up. But this time it wasn't the raiders. A large patrol gunship descended over the port, heavy cannons glowing in the dark. City guards cheered as the craft landed. Reinforcements. Finally, the captain of the guards approached Jack quickly. "We chased the raiders off for now," he said. "But they'll be back. They never give up once they mark a target." Jack glanced at Lyra. She was silent, gripping the mark of the chieftain tighter. "They want her because of this," Jack said. It unites her people. If they kill her, the Reiner tribes stay broken forever. The captain's eyes widened. He had heard of the Reiner people, once warriors, now scattered refugees. She can't stay here, the captain said finally. Too open, too many eyes. We'll hide her in the city. Jack shook his head. No, raiders have spies everywhere. She needs somewhere they can't reach, somewhere stronger. The captain frowned. Stronger than the city? Jack nodded slowly. I know a place. An hour later, under heavy guard, Jack and Lyra left the port in a convoy of armored trucks. The city lights faded behind them as the vehicles rumbled into the hills. Lyra sat beside Jack in the back seat, silent for most of the ride. Finally, she asked, "Where are we going?" Jack looked out at the dark horizon. An old fortress, he said, used during the war, abandoned now, but strong walls, hidden tunnels, food stores still sealed. She hesitated, then whispered, "You fought there." Jack nodded once. Long time ago, when the Reiner still had warriors. Before the raids. Before the tribes fell apart. The trucks stopped at dawn. The fortress rose from the rocks like a sleeping beast. Tall stone walls, gun towers dark and empty, gates rusted but still strong. Jack led Lyra inside. The guards began clearing rooms, repairing doors, setting up defenses. For the first time since the Silver Dawn crash, Lyra relaxed a little. "Will they find us here?" she asked softly. Jack looked at the hills around them. "They'll try, but this time we'll be ready." Later, as the sun climbed the sky, Jack stood on the fortress wall, scanning the horizon with a soldier's eyes. Beside him, Lyra joined quietly, holding the mark of the chieftain in her small hands. "You could leave," she said suddenly. "You did enough. Saved me more than once. You don't have to stay." Jack looked at her, then back at the empty hills. "During the war," he said slowly, "a Reiner soldier carried me for 3 days after I was shot, fed me, kept me alive when everyone else thought I was dead." Lyra listened silently. "He never told me his name," Jack said, "but he had eyes like yours. Same courage, same fire." He paused. "He was your father, wasn't he?" Lyra's breath caught. She nodded slowly. Jack gave a small, tired smile. "Then I'm staying. I owe him that much." That night, raiders came again. Dozens of them. Ships circling. Engines screaming. But this time, the fortress guns were ready. Turrets roared fire into the sky. Guard rifles flashed from the walls. Raiders fell one by one until the survivors fled into the dark. Jack fought on the walls like a man possessed. Every punch, every shot carrying the weight of old debts, old wars, old promises. And when the last raider ship finally vanished into the night, the fortress still stood. So did Jack. So did Lyra. Morning came. The air smelled of smoke and dust, but the sun rose bright over the hills. For the first time in days, Lyra smiled faintly. Jack sat on the wall beside her, exhausted but alive. "What now?" she asked softly. Jack looked at the mark of the chieftain in her hands. "Now," he said, "we bring your people together. We give them a home again. And if the raiders come back..." He glanced at the fortress walls, the guns, the soldiers preparing for the next fight. "We make sure they never break it." The girl who once sat alone on a ship, hated for her scent, had found something bigger than safety. She had found a protector, a friend, and maybe a future.